before we get into this, a small confession. This is a story about color. Yet, every archival image you're about to see is in black and white. Producing properly colorized visuals at this scale was, shall we say, beyond production budget. Rather fitting, really, for a film about the most expensive color in human history. You'll just have to trust us on the hues. There are 196 countries on Earth today. Every color of the visible spectrum appears on their flags. Red shows up on 148 of them. Blue appears on 139 national banners. White, green, yellow, black, and orange are all accounted for. Now try to find purple on any of them. You'll find faint traces on exactly 2 flags worldwide. A parrot with purple feathers on the flag of Dominica. A near-invisible rainbow stripe hidden on Nicaragua's coat of arms. One color is missing from virtually every national flag in history. The official explanation for this absence is production cost. That explanation stopped being true in 1856. So, what actually replaced it? Purple was not merely a rare color in the ancient world. It was the most controlled substance on Earth, guarded more jealously than territory. For 3,000 years, displaying the single color without permission was punishable by death. No other pigment in history has required its own legislation, and the story of how it was made explains exactly why. The source was a predatory sea snail called the murex, harvested from the eastern Mediterranean coast near what is now Lebanon. The ancient Phoenician city of Tyre became the production center, and the process was extraordinary in its brutality. Workers cracked the shells of living snails to extract a tiny gland near the digestive tract. Each snail yielded only a few drops of mucus. This secretion was soaked in salt water for 3 days, then heated in lead vats for 9 more. The smell was so foul that dye workshops were banished to the outskirts of cities. The resulting color, Tyrian purple, required roughly 12,000 snails to produce a single gram of usable dye. 1 g, that is the weight of a paperclip. The Roman historian Pliny the Elder documented the only surviving recipe for the process. His account describes temperatures that had to remain carefully controlled. Too much heat turned the dye brown. The margin for error was almost non-existent because of this insane production cost. Purple cloth was literally valued at its weight in gold. The Roman Emperor Diocletian's price edict of 31 AD confirms this. And here is where the economics become something else entirely. Purple was not simply expensive. It was legally forbidden. Persian King Cyrus in the 6th century BC became the first ruler to declare purple an exclusively royal color. He decreed that only he could wear purple garments with white stripes. Anyone else caught displaying the color faced severe punishment. Alexander the Great continued the tradition after conquering Persia. He wore purple tunics and purple crowns as symbols of absolute authority. Rome escalated the restrictions further. Senators were permitted a single purple stripe on their toggers. Generals celebrating a military triumph could temporarily wear a fully purple robe. But by the 4th century AD, the rules had tightened to their most extreme point. Only the emperor himself could wear Tyrian purple. The penalty for unauthorized use was death. Not a fine, not imprisonment, execution for wearing a color. The Byzantine Empire took this further than any civilization before or since. Emperors wore purple robes and signed official decrees exclusively in purple ink. The throne room was draped in purple fabric, and children born to a reigning emperor were given a specific title progenito. The word means born in the purple. This referred to the Fra chamber in the imperial palace, a room lined with purple stone where royal births took place. Your right to rule was encoded in a color. Your legitimacy was purple. Your bloodline was purple. The divine right of kings was not a metaphor. It was a pigment. Then in 1453, Constantinople fell to the Ottoman Empire. The center of Tyrian purple production collapsed. The merc snail populations along the Mediterranean had already been devastated by centuries of industrial harvesting. And the precise recipe, the exact temperatures, the exact timing was lost, not gradually, abruptly. For 403 years, from 1453 to 1856, true purple essentially vanished from the earth. Substitutes existed. Lichenized madder root overlaid with indigo, But they were pale imitations that faded quickly in sunlight. The real thing, the color that once marked the boundary between mortal and divine, was gone for centuries of absence, an entire color erased from human capability. And then an 18-year-old student brought it back by accident. In 1856, William Henry Perkin was spending his Easter vacation at his family's home in London. He was a research assistant at the Royal College of Chemistry, and his professor had challenged him to synthesize quinine, the only known treatment for malaria. Perkin tried oxidizing aniline, a chemical derived from collar, the thick black waste product of gas street lighting. The experiment failed. He produced a dark reddish-brown sludge. But when Perkin cleaned the flask with alcohol, something extraordinary happened. A brilliant purple solution formed. He had accidentally created the world's first synthetic dye from industrial garbage. He called it Moyne. He was 18 years old. Against the furious objections of his professor, who saw the move as selling out, Perkin left school entirely. With financial backing from his father, a construction contractor, he filed a patent in August 1856. He opened a dye factory at Greenford Green outside London by 1857. He was a millionaire before he turned 30. Within months, the color that had been worth its weight in gold for 3 millennia cost virtually nothing to produce. Color was everywhere, a waste product that cities were desperate to dispose of. Purple, the forbidden color of emperors, was now cheaper than red. What happened next should have changed the world of national symbols. It didn't. Mauve measles swept through fashion. Queen Victoria wore synthetic purple to the International Exhibition of 1862. Empress Eugenie of France wore Moen dyed dresses to state functions. Paris and London went purple mad for nearly a decade. Ordinary people could finally afford the color that had been forbidden to them for 3,000 years. And yet, not a single nation put on their flag. Now, the obvious objection is a reasonable one. Most national flags already existed by 1856. Countries do not redesign their flags on a whim. Inertia is powerful and flag traditions run deep. This is fair. But between 1900 and 1950, the political map of the world was completely redrawn. For major empires collapsed. The Ottoman, Austro-Hungarian, Russian, and German empires all disintegrated. Dozens of new nations emerged from the wreckage. Each one designed a flag from scratch. Colonial territories across Asia and Africa gained independence throughout the 20th century. Each one chose new colors for new nations. They had every color available, including purple, which by then cost less than most dyes. Not one chose it. Not the new republics of Eastern Europe. Not the newly independent states of the Middle East. Not the post-colonial nations of Africa or South Asia. Zero. The inertia argument collapses when you realize these were not old flags being preserved out of tradition. These were brand new flags designed by brand new governments for brand new countries. And every single one of them skipped purple, except one. On April 27, 1931, the Spanish Second Republic adopted a new national flag. 3 horizontal stripes of equal width, red, yellow, and dark purple. The purple stripe represented the people of Castile and Leon. It was a deliberate symbolic choice. The old red and yellow flag was associated with the Bourbon monarchy. The new republic wanted a visual break, and they chose a color that for 3,000 years had been reserved for rulers and gave it to the citizens. For the first time in the history of national flags, purple appeared prominently on a sovereign nation's banner. It lasted exactly 8 years. In 1939, Francisco Franco's nationalist forces won the Spanish Civil War. The purple stripe was immediately stripped from the flag. All public displays of the Republican were banned. Possession of the flag was equated with political subversion. The red of the monarchy was restored, augmented with Franco's own fascist iconography. And here is the detail that haunts me. When Spain returned to democracy after Franco's death in 1975, the purple did not come back. The new democratic constitution of 1978 kept red, yellow, red. The color of the people was permanently erased. The color of the monarchy was permanently restored. Today in Spain, the Republic camera color still appears at left-wing protests, labor union marches, and anti-monarchist demonstrations. It is treated as a radical symbol. A flag with a purple stripe in a democratic European nation in the 21st century is still considered politically dangerous, not because of what it costs, because of what it claims. A parallel story played out earlier in the Netherlands. The original Dutch flag, the Prinsen flag, was orange, white, and blue. Orange was the color of the House of Orange-Nassau, the royal family. During the 17th century, as Republican factions gained power, the orange stripe was gradually replaced with red. In 1652, the orange flag was formally banned. When the French Revolution's ideals spread to the Netherlands in the 1790s, red, white, and blue were cemented as the colors of liberty. The royal color was politically eliminated. Centuries later, in the 1930s, Dutch members of the National Socialist movement tried to revive the orange Prinsen flag. Queen Wilhelmina responded by issuing a royal decree in 1937, permanently establishing red, white, and blue as the only legitimate Dutch flag. The orange flag was dead. Its association with the old royal order was too dangerous to resurrect. Even today, the Netherlands compromises by flying an orange pennant above the red, white, blue flag on royal occasions. The royal color is permitted only as an accessory. It cannot touch the flag itself. Power is present but contained, allowed to hover above the national identity, but never to merge with it. I sat with this research for 2 weeks before writing a word. The pattern was clear, but the scale of it made me hesitate because what I was seeing was not a conspiracy. It was something stranger. 196 independent nations spread across every continent, every culture, every political ideology, every era of modern history, all independently making the same choice. Skip purple, the most coordinated agreement in the history of national symbolism, and nobody signed a treaty. Nobody passed a resolution. Nobody even discussed it. They all just knew. Portugal stripped the monarchy's blue and white in 1910 and replaced them with the Republican Party's red and green. Germany abandoned imperial black, white, and red in 1918 for the Weimar Republic's black, red, and gold. Russia cycled through imperial, revolutionary, and post-Soviet flags, each time shedding the symbols of the previous power structure. The pattern across the 20th century is unmistakable. The colors of old authority were systematically removed from national flags and replaced with colors that signal democratic reinvention. When Estonia broke free from the Soviet Union, it restored a blue, black, and white eel representing sky, soil, and virtue. When Kazakhstan became independent, it chose sky blue with a golden sun. When South Africa ended apartheid, it designed a flag specifically to represent unity and reconciliation. Every new nation that emerged from the collapse of an old power structure made deliberate, conscious choices about color. They picked colors that told stories about their people, their land, their aspirations. None of them picked a color that for 30 centuries meant your ruler answers only to God. But purple, the oldest and most potent color of imperial authority, was never removed from these new flags. It was never there to remove. It was preemptively excluded. Even after cost ceased to be a barrier, the symbolic weight remained too heavy. Think about what purple represented for 3 millennia. Not wealth, not luxury. Those are the softened modern associations. Purple meant divine authority. It meant God chose me to rule you. It meant the boundary between sovereign and subject was as fixed as the color itself. When an emperor wore purple, he was not making a fashion statement. He was making a theological claim. And when nations design their flags, they are making declarations about what kind of power they represent. Red for sacrifice, blue for justice, white for peace, green for faith or land. These are colors that describe a relationship between a government and its people. Purple does not describe a relationship. Purple declares a hierarchy. Purple says there is no negotiation between ruler and ruled. There is only the divine order. No republic wants that on its flag. No democracy can afford that symbol. And no nation, even the ones that are functionally authoritarian, wants to advertise it so plainly. The cost explanation is a convenient history that expired 170 years ago. It persists because it is simple and satisfying. Snails were expensive. Problem solved. But the real answer is not about economics. It is about what happens when a symbol is so powerful, so deeply encoded with 3,000 years of meaning, that even free access cannot strip of its charge. Purple is a color that told billions of human beings across dozens of civilizations that their place in the world was fixed, that authority flowed downward from heaven through a bloodline marked in dye. When that system was overthrown, when republics and democracies replaced emperors and kings, the new governments did not just change their laws. They changed their colors. They had to, because colors carry memory that outlasts the empires that created them. You walk past flags every day, government buildings, embassies, schools. You've absorbed their color language without ever being taught it. Red means something to you. Blue means something. You respond to those colors at a level beneath conscious thought, because 3,000 years of symbolic encoding does not wash out in a few generations. And somewhere in that subconscious vocabulary, purple still means what it always meant. Not luxury, not creativity, not the modern marketing associations. Authority without consent, power without appeal, the color that separated the divine from a human. So when 196 countries all skip the same color, you have to ask questions. When the one country that tried it had purple forcibly strict within a decade, you have to ask harder ones. Was it really about sea snails and production cost? Or was it about a symbol so embedded in human consciousness that no modern nation dares claim it? What other symbols have been quietly retired not because they were outdated, but because they were too honest? And what does it mean that in 170 years of cheap purple dye, not one new nation has claimed it? Not one has been willing to put on the cloth that tells the world who they are. I have spent months on this channel examining erasure, records that vanish, institutions that forget on purpose, genealogies that hit walls at suspiciously convenient dates. But this is a different kind of erasure. This is not a document removed from an archive. This is a symbol so potent that the entire modern world agreed to leave it behind without ever having a conversation about it. The color persists. You can buy it anywhere. It saturates fashion, branding, sports uniforms. But the one place where a color becomes a declaration of sovereignty, the one piece of fabric where a nation says this is what we are, purple remains absent. 170 years of opportunity, 196 silent refusals. The flags remember what we have agreed to forget. Every missing color is a confession.